Apologies. All right, well, good afternoon. My name is Michelle. I'm joining from Amiskwichi, Waskagan, Treaty 6 territory, which is known as Edmonton. We have a beautiful day outside. It's not overly sunshiny, but the sun is there. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're honored that you're here for Can-Do Links to Learning. We're here every Tuesday afternoon. And for those who might be catching this on the recording, welcome. So today's conversation, so we have Brittany here joining us. Today's conversation is FNFA, financing social, oh, just one second, I just gotta move this guy. Financing social, economic, and infrastructure projects for First Nation governments. So whether operating day to day or facing a crisis such as the COVID-19 pandemic, financial health is important to every community, business, and individual. I agree 100%. So to attain your goals, make critical decisions regarding your finances, and to prepare for the unexpected, financial planning and management are critical to protecting your current and long-term financial health. I think this conversation is really important to chat about. So through financial management and the process of setting goals, monitoring finances, and evaluating and reporting, community and business leaders can better manage their finances and support financial resiliency for their business and communities. So today you're joining CIBC as they discuss the importance of money management and best practices in financial planning and management for community and business leaders. I love it. And I think that this conversation, or these types of conversations, need to happen more and more. Financial health is so important. And educating us, financial literacy, all of that is really important. So when we think of that balance, when we think of those medicine wheel teachings, you know, the financial piece, when our finances aren't doing well, you know, that affects our wellness on all levels. So really good conversation. So I'm glad you're here to join us. I hope that you're ready. I brought my notebook. I'm ready to write down and take notes. So Brittany, we are so excited that you are here to join us. So we're going to just pass this virtual mic to you in 1 second. I just always think it's important just to take a moment to press pause. Take a deep breath, maybe closing the eyes feels okay for you, but we're just taking in this moment. We would just want to take a moment to honor Creator, honor the goodness of Creator. When that sun rose in the east, Creator meeting us for another day. And here we are on this Tuesday, halfway through our day. And you know, what are we going to learn? What have we learned? There's teachers all around us. So this moment right here is a teacher. And what is it that we need to learn in this moment? So we're so thankful for all of the land, Mother Earth. We have snow here in Edmonton. So yes, I'm even thankful for that snow because the land needs it. Thankful for the animals. I see the wapoos, the rabbits all around me where I live. I'm thankful for those sacred waters. So thankful for the land and all of our relations, and just give thanks for also to our family, both chosen family and biological family. So there's so many things to be thankful for. So I just want to take a moment to press pause and give thanks for all of those good things in our lives. So hi, Creator. So Brittany, the floor is yours. We welcome you with open arms. I'm passing this mic to you.
Well, Chini Gwech, Michelle, that was a great opening. Thank you so much for that moment to just relax, take that moment to, reflect on Creator all around us. Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to share my screen, and in the meantime, I'm going to introduce myself and actually pass it off to my colleagues who are joining me as well. So my name is Brittany Salt. Ani Bojo, Brittany Salt Indigenous Cause. I'm a Kurdasian Nindodem, Mississaugas of the Credit Nindonjaba. So I'm from the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Turtle Clan, and I'm also a relationship manager with CIBC Indigenous Trusts. So my team members are here, we're ready to present, and I'm actually coming to you from London, Ontario, the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenapewauk peoples. So really excited to join from Ontario. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see, but it's dark here. It's 5 o'clock. But really happy to be with you guys to end my day. Really excited for this. And I'll pass it on over to Linda.
Hi, thank you, Brittany. My name is Linda Hartford. I'm the Executive Director of CIBC Trust's Indigenous Trust Program. And I'm coming to you from the traditional territory of the Lekwungen on Vancouver Island, where I am blessed to live, work, and play. So we thought we would just break the deck up a bit so you don't have to listen to any one of us. But please feel free to put questions in the chat, or if you would like a copy of the deck, to send us an email. Our information is available at the end of the deck, and we can also put it in the chat. And just if you have any questions as well, please feel free. I'm totally mesmerized by whatever is in Kim's background. It looks like she has full-size cutouts of her family. That's awesome. All right. So as Michelle so kindly introduced, our session today is on financial management, building best practices for financial resiliency and sustainable community wealth. I probably won't bother going through the contents because you're going to get it live and actionable. So we'll leave that for anyone that wants a copy. So we thought we should just start out with a little bit of discussion around what is financial management and why is it so important. And thank you so much for the great kickoff, Michelle. So financial management is really the process of planning, organizing, controlling, and monitoring your financial resources. And it really is truly vital to any organization, including even to our own personal finances. So we did a little bit of a life cycle here to show how this is an ever evolving process. This isn't a one and done thing. We always have to keep reviewing those budgets, tweaking those budgets, making sure that we're evaluating, and then circling back around again to make sure that we're reflecting on that. So just a little bit more on that life cycle. If you're acting as a financial manager for your community or perhaps a business in your community, you're obviously very involved and responsible for the financial health there. And so the cycle is accounting, planning, monitoring, and reporting. And effectively what we're talking about here is financial planning. So having a plan in place to be able to make those critical decisions on what kind of money you have available for what kind of projects. And it's so important to have this because it really does help build your financial resiliency. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how it does that. And of course, having that financial resiliency is really what protects your community wealth and ensures that it is enduring. Who's Vanna? Are you Vanna, Britt? Oh, sweet. Okay. Brittany's a good Vanna. So beautiful graphic, just talking now, focusing a little bit more on community and building prosperity and managing wealth. So all of us on our team are really big fans of governance. And over the years that I've been working on Indigenous Trust, which is over 15 years now, I found that truly governance does matter. Having those appropriate accountabilities in place, having good governance around decision making, and also having that transparency back to your stakeholders, whether that's people on your economic development board or your community itself, your chief and council and your members. I need to move my picture of myself because I can't read the slides. There we go. So to support community wealth and prosperity, the kind of things that you should consider are, first of all, staying up to date on financial matters, really having those lines of communication and oversight and reporting structures that are really clear and efficient. Understanding the role of financial management as a tool for decision making, for reporting and analysis. So having that financial information available to you when you're making your decisions and then reporting back on that. And of course, a really big part of that is having that accountability back to your community, back to your board, and reporting to the administration on things. The next piece is understanding the responsibilities and roles of the various financial actors in your community. So who is responsible for what? In another deck we did recently, we had a slide that said, whose role is it anyway? Picking up on one of my favorite Canadian comedy shows, but understanding what the various roles are. So what is the program manager doing? They're responsible for identifying perhaps community or program needs, helping to develop that budget. What are chief and council's role? They're probably reviewing and then approving that budget. So just being clear and understanding everyone's role and having accountability for that which falls under your role. Next is to implement strong financial management policies and guidelines. And we have monitoring that budget to actual. And as I said earlier, this is an ongoing process. You really want to look at variances from your budget, and sometimes it will really be easy to understand that maybe because of the pandemic, one of your suppliers costs a bit more, but sometimes it's a good way of also planning your next budget so you know where to add increased costs and you have a clear sight on where your costs are going. And monitor, just understanding, staying up to date, being up to date with the needs of your community, and being up to date with what's going on in the economic climate that you're facing right now. So a little bit on financial planning for communities. So the first piece we wanted to talk about is just, again, identifying those roles and responsibilities, knowing who is responsible for what, who is the gatekeeper of the decision making, what checks and balances are there in place to make sure your finances are on track, who's responsible for what pieces, if there's corrective action required, how does that happen? Next piece is identifying goals and financial objectives and doing that planning for the future. So it's important to really be specific and detailed with the goals so that you can clearly identify what goal they're meeting. Also allows for consideration of priorities, uncertainties, unplanned contingencies. I don't think any of us planned on a pandemic. I'm not sure how we would plan for that as a contingency, but I think going forward, we all want to make sure we have a little contingency room in our budget for perhaps some of the changes that the pandemic has created in our budgeting. One that we're seeing here where I live in the West is shortage of some supplies and inflated prices on other supplies. So these are the kind of things we need to keep in mind. And then also identifying your goals and objectives allows you to provide some opportunity to really look at what's a need, what's a want, what can you add, what do you need to take out, what do you need to delay. That takes us to the life cycle of the budget. So again, that ongoing monitoring and evaluation and reporting, that cycle we looked at earlier. Identifying the financial goals and objectives and understanding the wants and needs and having a work plan for your budget are really critical. And of course, as we've mentioned, the budget may change once it's developed. So you need to have, I sound like a broken record, but that ongoing review and monitoring and keep updating it as things do change so that you have an accurate picture of your community's finances and you can be more resilient. Budgeting and financial planning truly is a team effort. There are going to be many actors. You're probably not the only person in your community that's going to be involved in this cycle. So just having that good coordination, being detailed, and having that good open communication between various members. I know on our team that's something we always do because, you know, my hope is if I miss something on a presentation that's going out, then maybe Brittany or Megan will catch it. And so I can't speak enough to the value of that teamwork. We put in on this page just some common definitions for finances. I can just sort of quickly zing through these, but I'm sure most of these are familiar to you. When people refer to assets, often they're referring to cash in the bank, but as a general rule, it's really the assets that you own. In many First Nations, the cash in your bank account is not your only asset. You have your lands, you have other resources. Your expenditures is really just a fancy word for saying money that's been spent or owed, things like salary, travel, what you're spending your money on. Your revenue is what your business is generating. Revenue can be reported often as sales. It will be your top line revenue, or earnings from dividends, interest, or services delivered. And then some of the important ones I think are equity. So the difference between what you have and what you owe. So the current assets you hold less any debt. So if you've borrowed money or you owe money to some of your vendors, that comes out of your equity. And of course, that's liabilities are things that are owed to someone or a debt that needs to be repaid. And a lot of people include their payables in that because these are still things that need to be paid. So when we look at revenues, we often look at gross and net, right? There could be your sales, but then your net revenue after your expenses is going to be obviously a different number. So a little more on the definitions. So they gave me the boring section. So a little more on the definitions. Brittany's laughing at me. Surplus. So surplus is just when your revenue is greater than your expenditures or your assets are greater than your liabilities, and that's a good thing. Receivables, which I mentioned earlier, are amounts owed to other businesses. So sometimes you purchase something from a vendor and you haven't paid, or cash loaned out to someone that hasn't been received back. Your total debt will be your net debt will be the total amount of your debt minus the cash you have on hand, your ability to pay that, or assets minus liabilities. A deficit is simply the opposite of a surplus. It's where the money that you owe or the expenses you still have to pay exceed what you already have. And when you're doing budgeting, that's something you want to really carefully manage, because that's an area that will really impact the resiliency of your community if you're unable to make all of your expenditures. Payables is simply debt that's owed by a business. And then of course your net financial assets is when above and beyond your debt and any expenses you have assets. So it's your financial assets and liabilities at market value. Things like land often are purchased at one value, but the real value of it is what it's currently worth. And similarly, often with some of your assets that you might use in your operating company might devalue over time. Sadly, although I know I paid $1,500 for my iPhone, it's probably only worth $3 today. So it's important to have an accurate perception of where things are really at. So the last piece on finances is cash management, expenditures, and wealth management. So for cash management, what we want to do is monitor closely and do projections regularly, keep track of it, make it visible, keep reviewing it. One technique that's commonly used is matching funding to cash flow objectives. So matching up your assets and your liability and ensuring that you're paying bills as funds are available. And sometimes on payables, there's a time frame with which you're allowed to make that payment. And so it may be advantageous for you to make that payment sooner or to make that payment later, but you want to still make it within that window so that you're not incurring any interest costs or anything for late payment. But that matching up of cash flow can be really important. And then operating with that holistic view of your cash flow, looking at it from an organizational perspective, not just from a narrow perspective. Some best practices for controlling your finances on the expenditure side is, again, clear policies on what's an expenditure, when it's due, keeping track of all that. Having pre-approval and authorization guidelines is often important. We use, where we work, we have a two-step process to approve payments. It's just that extra set of eyes to ensure that there's proper authorization, that things are accurately tracked. And having that process, of course, clearly defined. And our last set of pointers on controlling your finances under wealth management is ensuring that you have safeguarded assets for future generations, trying to avoid a position where you have negative cash flow, aligning your wealth management practices and procedures with your community vision and values. So many times through traditional colonial practices, when we look at wealth management, we're really only looking at money in and money out, and there's so much more to it than that, and ensuring that the practices you are engaging with are practices that your community would feel comfortable with and would meet their goal and their visions. Ensuring the partners and professionals that you work with are knowledgeable and that they're committed to you, to your community, to your community's business, that they're going to commit to capacity building, to providing education, and that they're actually a resource to you and not a drain to you. Interestingly, a panel I was on this morning that was an engagement panel between some First Nations communities and some business leaders in their community. One of the pieces that came back was that the First Nations get tired of people from businesses coming out and asking to be their partners and asking for engagement, and they're coming with effectively an empty basket where they have nothing to offer, and they're saying, oh, we want to work with you, but yet they don't want to listen and they don't want to hear what you actually want. So it's really important to choose partners that are there to work for you. And then the last little bit there is on financial stewardship, just ensuring that many times when you're working with a community wealth fund or where you're engaged in a business on your community, you have to look at what are your goals. Are there goals for supporting future generations as well? And if so, ensuring that you're bearing that in mind when you're making decisions. Decisions are not just for today, they're often 7-generation decisions. So these are just some best practices that we thought would be helpful for wealth preservation and financial health. And the last bit on this before we turn over to speaking specifically more to businesses is just on reporting and oversight. As you can see, we're sticklers for reporting and oversight. It is an ongoing process. It's a really valuable process because it provides leadership with real financial insight. into what's going on in the community. And it really does keep your community engaged and helps keep that sight on mapping those future goals and reaching those future goals, and not just on, you know, money in and out of the account as of today. So financial statements are really valuable. Often there's financial reporting internally, such as reporting back to chief and council. And then there's often reporting from council to community. And in some projects, there's even reporting then to outside of your community, perhaps to the broader community, to the municipality, or to the non-Indigenous partner that you may have. And it's important that all of that reporting occurs. There's a definite function of accountability, particularly to community members. I can tell you, in all the years I've been doing this, one of the three things I almost always hear at every single community I attend is that they would like more information. They want to know what's going on with their community's money. They want to know what's going on with their economic development. So I'm a big fan of having those regular meetings, having a good communication strategy. This helps everybody with the decision-making process. It really, having good reporting allows people to look at what were we trying to accomplish, where did we get, where's the gaps, how can we improve it, and just staying in that cycle of always monitoring and always adjusting. As Brittany put in for me, that monitoring is not just a year-end activity, and that's so true. Just keeping that cycle going regularly is so important. When you do have a variance, I touched on this earlier, it's really important to get an explanation for your variance. Sometimes you might look at it and go, oh yeah, this cost went up because of COVID, but it's really good to keep an eye on it. And unexpected amounts can be really challenging in a budget, and you need to know that to know whether your programs are successful and to know where you do need to tweak. And this ongoing assessment of your revenues and your expenditures really helps to prevent you from ever ending up in a deficit position, which can be very, very challenging when you can't meet your bills payments. So I'm a huge fan of budgeting and keeping track of actuals and always adjusting. Your financial health really is dependent on having good reporting, committing to the understanding and the various roles and responsibilities that you play and that other people in your community play, and developing your own skills for budgeting and having these strong guidelines and governance are really an important part of good financial oversight for your community, and will help build that resilience. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Brittany now, who will speak a little more on financial management for business, unless there were any questions put in the chat, which I've been talking, so I haven't looked.
I don't see any questions in the chat now, Linda, but we can definitely answer some as well when we're finished the presentation. But you know, we're also happy to take them as we're going along, so feel free to put them in the chat as well.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, thank you, Linda. So I will take over to talk about financial management for business. So building that financial resiliency as a business owner, you know, whether large, small, these are some best practices that you can put forward just to make sure you're managing that financial health and moving forward in a really good way. So overall, number one goal, planning matters. So planning is the key to success in all areas of business, especially when it comes to your finances. I think we've all heard that quote of, you know, I was an overnight success. It only took 20 years of planning, or something along those lines. You know, there are those amazing entrepreneurs that can kind of jump to the next thing, you know, the next idea, the next big break. But oftentimes there's still planning that goes into that. So this really is number one. To support financial resiliency and the ability to handle unexpected situations, business owners should consider a few things here. So setting up a budget, using reasonable assumptions for your sales, for costs and production. Usually those conservative projections are best here. You know, you don't want to be thinking you're going to do $1 million of sales in the first few months that you're operating. It's good to kind of, you know, factor in those elements of, okay, I'm just starting out. There's going to be those operating costs, you know, heavy on the first couple months, and kind of where your sales are expected, and just being really realistic with your budget during that time if you are a startup, or, you know, along any areas of your business. If you're a startup or you've been running for 10 years, it's always really good to be realistic and conservative with your projections. Understanding your expenses and clearly defining those allowable expenses. So Linda did touch on that a bit for the community side of things. For business side as well, it's just, again, being very conservative, being realistic, And understanding your expenses, counting everything in. There's little items that do, pop up here and there for different businesses, but just counting those in, the unexpected when you can, just ensuring that everything's accounted for, and creating separate accounts for business and personal. So this is one that I really love because I've definitely met a couple business owners in my previous life that kind of rolled everything into one. So they did have their business expenses coming from their personal accounts. So, at end of the year, you're kind of going about your business, operating, doing all that good stuff, making sales. But at the end of the year, when you're doing your accounting, it's really a mess. You have your business expenses coming from your personal account, everything mixed into one, you don't know what's what. So it's really important to have that separate account for both your business, personal. And again, no matter how big or small your business is, it's really important to draw that line. And, a little bias here as well, but setting up a financial account for your business oftentimes does come with a lot of perks for your business as well. Financial institutions do have different product lines for businesses versus personal. So it's really important to kind of have that separation, but there's also really a lot of great benefits to that too. And you can actually access some great products, financial products for businesses through that as well. So really important there. Having an emergency cash reserve. So this is really important as well because it all guides back to that planning. So when you're planning, you kind of know your expenses, your costs, your operating costs, all of that good stuff. But you can also really build in a nice contingency in there for, emergency cash reserves. And a lot of times, as we have seen, there is unexpected things that can pop up. Pandemic being one of them, a big one. But really ensuring that you have something on hand if something does pop up. You had to shut down for 6 months and, you're about to open up, we all were there when everything got lifted, restrictions lifted, and restaurants, for example, wanted to open. And, without having an emergency cash reserve, a lot of them weren't able to buy product, to buy food, to buy, those resources they needed to open. So it's really important to build that in as much as you can. And again, really goes back to planning, to that really concise budgeting and realistic budgeting. But it's always really important to have an emergency cash reserve. And, for businesses, individuals, anyone, it's really important to do that and build that into your budget. So a little tip there as well. And overall, so, kind of going back to the basics, financial management is really what we're talking about today, financial planning. And, this really helps you make informed decisions. I think just kind of going willy-nilly on the fly with your finances is never a good thing. And that's one thing for, COVID again, what popped up is if your finances weren't really healthy going into the pandemic and you weren't really planning for something unexpected, those businesses definitely took a hard hit, unfortunately. So again, just really making sure you're planning, moving forward, knowing where you're sitting financially, what your financial health is, but also where you can build room for those emergencies. So important. So planning is number one. Please plan, formalize that budget process, and really focus on getting aware of your expenses, get comfortable with them, understand what's coming in, what's going out. On any given day, it's really important to understand that, to be comfortable with it, and you build it into your planning process. So next slide. So we're going back to the pandemic again. I know these sessions are, kind of post-recovery, kind of building some tips and tricks to kind of build that resiliency if something pops up, fingers crossed, but also just, building ourselves up after the pandemic. So this slide is titled, "But I planned for the unexpected and the unexpected happened." So if you plan for the unexpected and you're sitting in a great spot when it does happen, essentially. So the COVID-19 pandemic did display that even when businesses are engaged in planning, the unexpected can still impact your business, no matter the size. And we've seen a lot of large players, our Air Canadas, a lot of different businesses that were really impacted by the pandemic, and every industry at some point in the pandemic was impacted. And, definitely our small businesses were the number one hit, unfortunately, but really it didn't matter the size. Everyone was impacted by the pandemic, and no matter if you planned or not, we're all kind of in the same boat regardless. Within this scenario though, financial management really did provide that ability for businesses to monitor and evaluate their financial health. So again, you're making yourself prepared. You're understanding your financials at any given moment. So March of 2020, financial health wise, if you kind of knew, you weren't in a good place, you might have accessed some of the government support programs. You might have really made sure you reached out and got initiated with those right away. You might have started kind of planning some contingencies of where you could kind of, let some, cash flow kind of go, or, put it away for this and that. So there's a lot of different things that you could have done within that time. And it all, again, centers on financial management, really kind of understanding your finances and understanding where you can go with them and, to wave the war, get through it, but also where am I going to end up also on the other end of this? That financial management would really help you also see that as well into the future, what that would look like. So just at the bottom, we do have a couple little things about financial management. So with financial management, you'd be better positioned to tackle challenges. You'd have a better understanding of your business's capabilities. And again, both in the pandemic, going through it, but also coming out on the other end. Where would you end up, say, if this went on for 6 months, 1 year, and up to almost 2 years where we're at now. You'd really have a handle on where you'd be sitting within that timeline and making informed decisions that positively impact your business. So again, March 2020, you're really, worried about your cash flow and, your business's survival at that moment. What's this going to look like? You definitely would reach out for those supports. So, either going to the government, the CIRB, the business support resources, you'd understand that you need to use those and you dig into them. And that was a really great decision for a lot of businesses to help them keep afloat during the pandemic. So really making those informed decisions that will positively impact your business and guide you through the crisis. And we've seen a lot of business do that really well throughout the pandemic. So changing priorities for businesses. So again, very pandemic focused. So we've seen a lot of shifts during this time, in every element of life, how we work, how we shop, we wear masks everywhere now, a lot of Zoom meetings, we're all having Zoom fatigue, and, we're really excited to be able to meet on Zoom tonight. But, I feel like it's a really big change for a lot of people to, invite people into their homes and, you're sitting on a screen. So in terms of business, there were some items that did change for businesses, some really big ones. So a few, setting up physical distancing for employees and customers. So this might have been some costs that were incurred by the businesses. So that's installing plexiglass, shifting tables in restaurants. So there's less tables, but more room between them. Even for, I know, band offices, there's at my community, there was just a mail slot where we put things in. If you had a letter to go to the community, you'd kind of slide it in, or, you'd pick up your check at a certain time and meet in the parking lot. There's a lot of different ways that businesses are shifting and, allowing for those social distancing parameters. But for businesses, it really is kind of installing those barriers, but also capacity limits, which has really impacted businesses as well. And allocating some budget. So again, costs incurred. So allocating budget to PPE, buying it for your employees, ensuring customers, there's hand sanitizer when they walk in. That is all cost that is incurred by businesses, and it can really add up. And again, this is something that businesses probably didn't plan for, to have masks, gloves, visors, and shields, buying, tubs of hand sanitizer to be available for customers or employees. They probably didn't plan for this, I would say, in December of 2019 for this cost within their budget for the year. So really another cost incurred, but something that has changed the way businesses operate that we've seen currently. There's been an increase in online sales and office employees working remotely, and setting up contactless payments through financial institutions. So, some businesses, you might have been a cash business. We've seen a lot of those operating. If you're a small, crafter, construction business, a lot of people weren't carrying cash though. And, again, throughout the pandemic, there was really that move towards that contactless payment. So using your debit, using your tap function, just so there wasn't that contact between, money, handling of it, putting into someone else's hands. So again, really a shift there. If you weren't prepared for that, didn't have that set up, you definitely may have set it up during this time, especially as well, just because people weren't carrying cash around. A lot of places weren't accepting it. So there's really been that shift as well in terms of individuals. People just don't really carry cash anymore. It's just kind of something that, you almost feel bad giving it to somebody now. I remember I was at Tim Hortons and I didn't have my debit card. It actually had fallen in my car. And I just felt so guilty having to pay with cash. Like I really just didn't want to do it. I almost wanted to say, okay, hold on, let me go back. But I paid with the cash and just felt really guilty in the meantime. But made sure we sanitized and did all that good stuff. But yeah, so just a couple of things that we did see and some costing attached to it that, again, businesses may not have been prepared for or planned for, but really are involved in the new business environment today. So cash flow. So planning, kind of getting back to that planning aspect, but cash flow is a big piece of business. And, again, no matter the size, cash flow is always really great to understand for your business. So when we talk about cash flow, it is monitoring both what's coming in and what's going out. And, really important difference between, we talk about revenues. Revenues only looks at what's coming in. So that's just money coming in. Looks great on paper if you're just focusing on that, but we also want to look at what's leaving the business as well. So looking at the flow of funds through the business, really important. That's really going to mark your cash flow of, are you in negative? Is your bills more than what you can pay right now, more than the cash on hand? It's when you understand your cash flow, when you're in the positive, where you're able to make those payments, able to, pay your bills, able to buy your supply, buy your product as well, that really improves your chances of survival and growth as a business owner. You're doing good if you're in the positive. You want to make sure that cash flow is there, it's ready for you, it's it's in a good spot for your business. It provides liquidity, so you can advance more if you need to buy some more supplies, some more product for your business. You have that liquidity, that movement behind it, and it also helps you prepare for economic events. So if you are managing your cash flow appropriately, you have all your bills covered, and you have those revenues coming in, you're in a good spot and you're really prepared for those economic events. So it's really important to be able to understand your cash flow, what it is, again, money coming in, money going out, and just where you're sitting on a day-to-day, any given day, really important. And also important too to understand as well, when you have bills coming up within this, I think it's the day-to-day, but also future. When are your bills coming up? When are you expected to get some money coming into your business as well? When can you expect, a payment to come in, or you have a big vendor payment coming in? When is that going to be posted to your account? It's really understanding where your finances are sitting, today, in the future, and just understanding that movement of your money for your business. So really important stuff. And the next few slides are about cash flow, just because we really think this is so important for planning as a business owner. And again, at any size business. So cash flow considerations. So inventory days, if you're, a sales-based business, do you have inventory sitting on the shelf for too long? Do you have a large purchase that you need to do? You're out of inventory. Do you have enough cash and, financials on hand to make that purchase for that as well? So really understanding your inventory days and even understanding your flow of inventory, what that does look like for you on any given day for a business, really important. Your accounts payable days. So are you paying when you need to? And I know Linda touched on this for community, business, individual, it's always important to pay on time. So really just marking, ensuring that you have those dates in your calendars of when some of your bills are due, and just make sure that you're paying on time. And even in the build up to that, making sure that you have those that cash flow on hand to make those payments, to cover those costs. So really important as well to track those two, the account payable days and accounts receivables. So are you getting paid on time? And this is one that I've noticed a lot. Again, in my past life dealing with some businesses, this is one that a lot of business owners really kind of put to the wayside. And it's something that's so important, to get paid. You need to get paid. So it's really important to, make sure that you're also following up with your payments, making sure you're being paid from, if there's different service providers that owe you some money, or, what have you. You really need to make sure that you're being paid as a business owner. Really important there as well. And again, that's kind of your money coming in. So that's your cash flow. You want that coming in. Really important there too. So together, these items really kind of make up that planning, and really a really succinct calendar to kind of look at it, understand your cash flow, looking at these days, what's coming in versus what's going out, when you can expect it, those timelines, you can better plan. It all comes down to that, the planning. So benefits of cash management solutions. So in terms of cash management solutions, it kind of goes into your cash flow. Basically it's looking at, managing your cash. So, if you don't have cash at any given time, what can you do to bring in more at any given time? If you have too much of it at one given time, what can you do to prepare yourself and, put that away to prepare for those days that you may need a little bit more? So effective cash management solutions, they do provide convenient and streamlined ways to pay taxes, suppliers, and employees, to increase access to funds, needing to grow your business, increasing productivity, taking advantage of opportunities, adding in convenience and collecting payments from customers, and a peace of mind, identifying risk and fraud. So these cash management solutions we're kind of talking about is just different, financial products that you maybe could use for your business. We've all kind of seen, the QuickBooks, the quick payments coming in and out of your business, and they're posted really quickly. The automatic kind of tellers that, get posted right to your accounts. Even financial solutions too, like different loan products as well. That again really goes to your cash management and ensures that you have some cash on hand too. So it's all kind of rolled into one bucket, one kind of lovely package, but cash management solutions are there in times where you need to really help to manage your cash flow and just make it an easier process as well. So if you do want any assistance with any of, cash management solutions, feel free to reach out to our team. We're always there to help. But overall, cash management solutions really help to keep your cash flow healthy. We'll say that, and just really help to guide that process, make it easier, and make that planning more effective and more simple too along the way. So just building again on the separation of accounts. So it's not personal, it's your business. So many business owners are uncertain about when or whether to establish separate business accounts for their early stage businesses. That's most often when we do see it, when it's early stage, a startup, when it's not separated, just because you don't have an accountant maybe set up, barking down you saying, why are these not separated? Just as of yet, if you're just a startup. But over time, by separating those accounts, it will save you time. So reviewing and retrieving all statements, identifying your business expenses versus personal, never a fun activity. I can definitely tell you that. So overall, it is going to save you time. And, as a business owner, we all know that time is money. You want to make sure that you're making your money or your time most efficient, and I guess your money most efficient too. So ensuring that, it is separated, and you do have that fine line where you can pull your financial statements directly from your business and not have everything mixed in. It decreases your upfront accounting costs. So bookkeepers will charge extra to sort and compile your personal expenses and your business statements. So, you can definitely have your personal accountant, your business accountant. Those can be separate as well, or the same person. But moral of the story is having those statements separate is really the important piece, because it will definitely save you costs. They won't have to, take the time going through your statements to see what's personal, what's allowable for your business. They can just do that with your business account statements, and easy enough. They're off to the races. So that's a really important piece there as well. And you will benefit from the tools of the trade. So business accounts and credit cards, these are cash management tools that personal accounts don't have. So I did allude to this a little bit in the first little bit of this presentation, but there are financial products that you're basically leaving on the table if you are kind of doing business, your business items out of your personal accounts. there are different, leveraging tools and different financial products that would really make some of these items easier, but also add some leverage to your accounts too. So ensuring that you do have access to those, you're setting up your business account. Again, your commercial financial planner can kind of go through some items that would suit your business best, and really just make your money work for you and your accounts work for you as a business owner. So really important piece there to separate. And so having a business account, really important piece here. You really want to make sure you're setting this up early, setting that separation up early for your business if you are a startup. Really important piece here too. And that goes into planning as well. So just a quick little item on financing, because I know for this, the kind of post-COVID recovery section, a lot of people right now are looking to possibly expand their business, maybe, start up another aspect of their business post-COVID. Really great that people can get back to that kind of planning and that business expansion and, really digging deep into their business of what they can do now that we're past COVID, the worst of it. So financing, what are banks looking for? So banks will evaluate your ability to borrow based on the strength of your business plan and management capabilities, your financing, your past personal credit history, and collateral available to secure the loan. So these are the traditional items that banks do look for when you are approaching a bank for financing. So a couple of things to think about within this, financing scenario. So have you thought about, does your cash flow forecast include your purchase of PPE, that personal protective equipment, and other expenses associated with COVID-19? So right now, even though we are technically past, post-COVID, kind of the worst of it, not in the thick of it, things are open, we're moving, we're traveling. We still want to make sure that there is that room for those expenses and they are being considered. Because right now, you still walk into a store, you still have to do the squirt of the hand sanitizer, you're still wearing a mask, your employees still need masks and those protective equipment. So really important to factor that in. And if you have enough cash flow for that, and if not, do you need to finance? Do you need to, find other ways to build it into your business budgeting? But really factoring that in as a new expense, something that we have to deal with for some months to come still, unfortunately. Another consideration, how much money do you need? What will you do with it? How will it benefit your business? And when and how will you pay it back? So this is really important as well. Again, looking at financial health, looking at projections, your sales, different months that you may not, make as much, summers may be better than winters, and, making all those projections and that really realistic, holistic view of your business. When would you be able to pay it back? What does that look like for your business? In a really realistic scenario, what can you afford to in terms of a payment for your loan as well, each month ongoing? So some really important considerations there, again, just to kind of roll back into your planning and financial health. And what if something goes wrong? What if, God forbid, another pandemic pops up, the unexpected happens, your business has to shut down. What happens with that loan payment? Where's that going to come from? Do you have an emergency reserve that can come from? And, you can kind of pay for a few months from it. Some really important considerations there in terms of financing and just kind of ensuring that your business is ready to take on that loan, that financing, but also what are you going to do with it? Is it really important? Is this something that can wait? Is it something that you need now? A lot of factors go into that. So just being sure you're ready to answer these questions when you do approach the financial institution and answering them for yourself as well. Again, just to really ensure that planning and financial health, you're in a good spot. You can carry this loan, take it on, and see your business prosper. Really important considerations there. And I believe this is our last slide for business planning. But overall, financial resiliency really is financial management and planning. It's really understanding where you're sitting, where you're at, where you want to be, where you're expected to be, really understanding all of those things at once. So, your business does have to be viable enough to start, but durable enough to last. So you really want to make sure that you're preparing and planning. You have a plan to be profitable, but you also have that fallback to survive and be resilient too. So hopefully these tips and tricks were helpful. Cash flow is a big one of them. Planning is number one. And hopefully that does help in terms of planning for your business. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Megan if she's still on the line. She can walk you through a little bit about our team and our services that we do provide, just related to what you've seen today.
Hi, everyone. I didn't get to introduce myself before. My name is Quasco Chadigas. I also go by Megan Shannon, and I'm coming to you today from the territories of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations out on the West Coast. This little Cree is far from home now because I grew up in Saskatchewan, but I'm enjoying the West Coast weather other than lately our rain, which has been a little out of control. But I just wanted to thank all of you for welcoming us into your space today and starting this conversation and having this conversation. We feel really fortunate in this role to be able to connect with many of you in the communities who are doing this work and implementing these processes on the ground. And so really our intention is to be a support and work with you in your goals going forward. And so this slide really outlines kind of what our integrated solution is at CIBC. We have a CIBC Indigenous Market Specialized team. In 2019, with executive support, we also established an Indigenous Trust Services. We have a CIBC Asset Management team, which helps to create investment management services, and we've hired an Indigenous specialist group there as well. And then we also have CIBC Mellon, which provides custodial services. What we're trying to do is rewrite the narrative of how financial institutions are supporting our Indigenous communities. And, in the past, financial institutions have been very colonial and paternalistic. They've come out with solutions and they've said, hey, make this work for you because it's worked over here. And what we're trying to do is recreate that process so that we're developing solutions that are community-driven, community-based, and supported by those financial partners. So we're fighting the good fight from within the financial institution to ensure that you guys are being able to manage your finances your way and having those supports in place. And so really, we want to be a dedicated partner with all of you and create those financial solutions, but we want to respect your process in creating those financial solutions. So, if there's ever a question on anything, I know the three of us are generally Indigenous trust specialists, but if there's ever a question, do come to us because we will be the muscle from within inside the bank to find those answers for you and to also help us introduce more Indigenous epistemologies into how CIBC is doing banking, because I think that's also important. There's so much that we want to be able to share, but there's so much that we can learn and take back, acknowledging the fact that all of our Indigenous communities are so different and bring a different perspective. And I think there's only one more slide, which is just a wrap up on how we can help. Call us, support, advice, there's all of these tools here. So please do reach out if you ever have a question because we want to work through those with you. And then our closing thoughts just summarizes everything that Linda and Brittany have shared today. Adopting, sometimes we say adopting best practices, but really it's more so adopting good practices, right? There's always going to be a practice that's right for your community. And just because it's worked somewhere else, it might not work for you. So adopting good practices in financial management is vital for your communities, for your business, for your individuals. And it's vital not only now, but it's vital for that long-term planning too. And that support of your sovereign First Nations in making those decisions, but also realizing, and Tara had asked a question in our chat here, it can be hard sometimes to figure out what the impact is going to be when you complete a project through sort of good financial management, right? Like you may be able to plan for all of these things and budget and, you know, achieve your outcome, but how do you measure those long-term impacts? If you've created more employment in your community, what is the impact on socioeconomic conditions? What is the impact on sort of future projects? And so part of this community planning and spending planning and financial planning also contributes and has that ripple effect to other opportunities in your community. And so financial health does matter, which includes that effective money management and finding that pathway financially to achieve your goals and objectives, because as we know, as Indigenous people, there's no one solution that's going to sort of address any problem. It's this holistic picture of us and the health of our communities. And so the financial aspect is a piece, but you know, it's good to plan for healthy pathways in any of those opportunities in your community. But yeah, Kanaska-Mitanan, and thank you everyone for allowing us to participate today. Oh my goodness, I need to update my picture. It has been a long time since I've had blonde in my hair.
Wow. Well, I'm just, thank you so much, Linda, Brittany, Megan, for being here, lending your time. You know, I feel, it sounds like you're creating this healthy relationship within CIBC. And I really appreciate that, bringing in that Indigenous perspective and those values and those worldviews and belief systems. So it sounds really promising. It sounds very hopeful. So thank you for the work that you're doing there. I appreciate the knowledge that you shared and you passed on today. You know, one takeaway is, and it's always a really good reminder, that we don't plan to ever fail, but we fail to plan. So I think that financial planning is so integral to the health of our communities and our organizations, and even in our own personal lives around financial management. So that was really a great takeaway, really great reminder. We only have a couple of moments left. I really loved the conversation that was going on in the chat box with Megan and is it Tara? Yeah. Good conversation, good questions there, Tara. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? So we have just a couple of moments left, but any questions or comments before we move on for the rest of our day? We just open it up for you. Feel free to mute yourself. Feel free to use that chat box.
One comment I wanted to make too is that Tara and I actually know each other. We were in the Indigenous Youth program with the government back in 2010. So I saw her name and I was like, I wonder. And then I saw her face and I got so excited. I was like, it's Tara.
That is amazing. You never know the connections.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend that program.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
It was so good to see you again, Megan, and it just goes to show the capacity building that, you know, including in Indigenous stewardship and even financial management and economic development and business and just administration. It was capacity building 10 years ago, and look at us now. So
that's what I was thinking. Totally. We were all part of this internship program, sort of finding our way and finding those connections. And now look at us, here we are both on a call going through financial planning. It's awesome.
So awesome. So awesome. I love those connections. I love those moments where we reunite with past neighbors, friends, connections. I love it. I'm here for it. So awesome. All right. Well, it doesn't seem like there's any questions. So you gave us lots to think about. You gave us a lot of information. Thank you so much for lending your time today and to be with us here at Can Do, the Links to Learning. We really honor what you're doing, and you know, you're building those bridges. So hi, thank you. So thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. I hope the rest of your day you're surrounded and you feel supported by the creation, the universe, all that's around you. That creator, you know, has given us so much support if we just are to look around. And so thank you all for this beautiful presentation. Yeah, and as Brittany's saying, reach out if you have any questions. Their contact information is right there. And that's what it's all about, is reaching out, asking those questions. No question is a dumb question. So reach out if you have any questions. This is a really good, important conversation. So thank you all. Have a good rest of your day. Be well.
Right, Sapka, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be glad, y'all. Take care.